Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
You should start by doing a little bit of homework yourself and figuring out what's my legacy? What do I want to have? I mean, you said it, now's the time to start. You can start now and you can make little tiny steps to say, what should you have? And then you tweak them as you go on, as life events or trigger events happen. An estate plan, a legacy plan is not something you put on the shelf. It's something that grows and lives with you.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hey, neurodivergent entrepreneur. Do you feel overwhelmed and exhausted by your to-do list? Well, it's not your fault. Increase your ease, impact, and income by learning to work with the way you are wired. Take the Intensities quiz right now to understand more about yourself, get strength-based tips, and join free virtual support calls to tackle challenging tasks. Go to intensityhub.com right now to get started. Marketing your business shouldn't feel like a mystery. Every busy entrepreneur deserves a process that provides clarity and peace of mind to empower you to grow your business with less stress and headaches. The Far Beyond Marketing Guidebook is your easy-to-read, easy-to-implement guidebook. Get it now and use code MARTA for 15% off. Visit farbeyondmarketingguidebook.com. Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much, Marta. I really appreciate it.
Yay, I'm super excited for us to talk. Well, first and foremost, obviously, I want you to introduce yourself, but I am super impressed by your work and your book. I had a chance to read your book before we talked today, and you're a great writer, very, very knowledgeable on your line of work, and we'll talk more about it, obviously, but I'd love for you to kick us off and tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So it's kind of funny to hear me in writing. I traditionally, I've never been a prolific writer. I write some articles and things like that, but I never consider myself. I'm more so of the, I'm a broker, I'm a entrepreneur, I'm more of a, an analyst type guy, a numbers type guy. So the book was really more of a labor of love. So I'm glad that it spoke to you. And I tend to write kind of, with a little bit of humor and a little bit, very straightforward and very kind of, just trying to connect, right? Because that's kind of who I am.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk more about the book because obviously we'll talk about your work because everything is very much connected. So Tangled Legacy, what is this about? What inspired it? I love the name.
Yeah. So Tangled Legacy is kind of it's about legacy planning, estate planning, but not really the boring financial aspects of it. It takes a step back a little bit and looks more at the non-financial, looks at everything, but it looks really about your legacy, what values, what do you really want to leave behind, right? And so many people just avoid the thought of, oh, we're all gonna pass someday, and a lot of people just kind of put off that thought. And what they realize, where they don't realize, is that what you don't do today, your heirs have to do tomorrow. And so the Tangled Legacy is very much something that happened in my life. Unfortunately, it was when my father passed a year and a half ago. We thought we had everything, kind of, buttoned down and we're all good and, all the financial stuff and looks really good. And we've been doing this. And in fact, I've been doing it in my business for many years. But we weren't as buttoned down as we thought, right? And so that leads to tangles, and that leads to, so if you looked at the tree, I'm a big sci-fi reader, and so it's a dystopian, family tree, and so that's what that legacy is. You hope to leave love and whatever you want, but the reality is what you leave behind is something different.
Right.
And so that was the book was an opportunity to try to, get people to avoid some of the mistakes that we made and other people can make as well.
Yeah, well, and it's such an eye opener to have somebody that works with this and knows all the things compared to most of us say that you still struggled when your father passed and having to look into everything and decide what to do. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And that's something that my parents have been talking a lot about because my family's from Brazil. And both the daughters ended up moving to America. So my dad has things that he's putting in place to make it easier for us when the time comes, which I'm very grateful for. But then it also gets me thinking, what can I start doing, even though my kids are little, since this is already top of mind because of them? And then reading a book like yours really has me thinking, it's never too early. It's
That's
never too
right.
early to start thinking about it. And like you said, we usually avoid it because we don't want to think about death. But that is inevitable. So what are we really doing? We're pretending like it's not going to happen. Anyways, well, but before we get into the details, because I do want you to give us some practical tips. Obviously, people are going to have to read the book to get all of it because there's lots of details to this, as I've come to find out. Um, I wanted you to share a little bit more about your relationship with your dad, and obviously then your experience after his passing with having to handle all of this.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, my dad and I we work together, but I'm a real estate broker by trade, and I do lots of different things. But one of the things I do is buy and sell multi-unit apartment buildings, and work with my father since about 2010. He was my business partner, he was my friend, he was my mentor, he was my sparring partner. We went through all the things of life. And one of the things that we would do is we would work with our clients on their legacy, and their legacy really from a portfolio, all of their real estate, and all of helping them figure out how many properties and what they would do. And we would use his life as trying to figure that out. And so what trust, what LLCs, tax strategies, everything that entails. The good news is there's a lot of those things that are out there. There's a lot of tools and a lot of strategies that are out there, and they can all be solved. That's really the easy part, right? The hard part is the interpersonal, right? Is the things that people don't want to confront right now. First of all, they don't want to confront their own mortality. And second of all, they just want to take the easy way out, right? They'll say, oh, you have your estate attorney. Great. I will go and do that plan and put it on a shelf, and that's it. And the reality is that's not what works for me, might not work for you, right? So when he passed a year last May in 2023, we thought, hey, this is, I thought, well, however sad, but I got this. Some of the interpersonal stuff was the stuff that we, the healthcare, end of life, those decisions that we thought were asked and answered weren't. He got married late in life, and so some of those things kind of came back to you know
Yeah.
show their heads in
Mhm.
different ways. And so I started thinking, boy, uh there's a better way to do this, right? There's errors that we make, and there's just simple ways that we can avoid this. And so that's really kind of what the book is meant to do, is try to identify and help avoid some of those errors.
Yeah, and it's all based on personal experience, which is great because
Right.
that's when you know what you're talking about. It's not just theory. One of the things that I love that you did, well, not only the book format, we were talking about this right before, that it's really a reference guide. So if you go on the index and you're like, I need to find this, I need to answer this question, you can really go and read quick description and find the information that you need. But I also love the storytelling and the sports analogies. So I'd love for you to because I think for people, the majority of people that are listening that are not familiar with this, the sports analogies really drive it home. If you're able to explain, then by using some, I know you use several to analogies to illustrate different points, but whatever comes to mind that is easiest, just to put things in perspective for us.
Sure, sure. My father, he played a lot of softball in his life. He loved it. He used to, before he turned 80, he played over 300 games a year. I coached softball for years for my daughter, and he would come out and join us. And so that was really kind of our language of love
Mm-hmm.
and to the family. He wasn't the guy who would come out and say, "Son, I love you," but he wouldn't miss the game for my daughter, and he would, cheer her on, and he'd be
Yeah.
the one to give her the tips afterwards. So kind of an homage to that. Uh, I put a lot of sports references in there. For example, the person that you go to help you with everything. It's not your attorney. It's more like your quarterback. It's somebody that can help manage your attorney, manage your CPA, manage somebody else. And that person might be a friend. It might be a different professional. It might be somebody that you know. but it's not necessarily your attorney, right? And that person's more like your quarterback, right? To put it in the, that will throw the ball to your, your receiver. That's going to be your CPA, or, you might need two different types of CPAs, but you need somebody that's going to be able to put everything together and kind of see the big picture. And that's really kind of, I'm not an attorney. I love attorneys, and but not you shouldn't start with an attorney. If you start with an attorney, you're going to get their plan, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And it may or may not be the right plan that you want to have.
Wow, that's great advice, because I think that's what the majority of people would do is let's go to an estate planning
Yeah.
attorney and see what
Yeah.
they say. Hmm.
Yeah, and that's the last place you should start. You should not start by, going to an attorney. You should start by doing a little bit of homework yourself, and figuring out what's my legacy, what do I want to have. And you Martha, you're younger than I am. Your kids are younger than I am, So, but you're right. I mean, you said it, now's the time to start. You can start now, and you can make little tiny steps to say, what should you have? We could talk about those things in terms of very, very simple things, and then you tweak them as you go on, as life events or trigger events happen. You get married, you have babies, other people come in and out of your life. You make those tweaks to your plan along the way. An estate plan, a legacy plan, is not something you put on the shelf. It's something that grows and lives with you.
Hmm. Definitely. Well, and one of the other things that just comes to mind right now that you said, whatever you create, don't put it in a safety deposit box.
Right.
Because people would think that is a safe place to put it in. This is just something that I thought of. And then you're talking about don't go to an attorney right off the bat. What are some of the other little pitfalls or things that you could encourage people to avoid as they're considering starting their estate planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the number one thing you shouldn't do is try to do everything at once, right? And when a Monday morning after a week-long vacation, what's the first thing you want to do? Is you want to get everything done. But for me, I clean my office. I move things around. I make sure that everything is set, and then I'll just turn on, get my cup of coffee, and I'll start on, let me get a couple of easy things done, right? Estate planning is kind of that way too, right? Let's get your house in order. Let's start off easy, right? Let's start off with the big picture. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the values you want to leave behind? Okay, great. Now, once we have that, let's start to look at our resources and who's available to us. Who are the people that are out there that can help, right? And it's not that you don't have to go to an attorney and spend $600 an hour to start this. You can start introspectively. You can start talking to your spouse, a mate, a clergy, a friend, somebody, and just doing your own research. So that really that pitfall, the number one pitfall is just not starting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest mistake people say is forget it. When I'm gone, and
Right.
I don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're really setting your heirs and people you love up for,
Right.
at least 2 years of misery, if you don't do things right.
Right. Well, because that's something else that you cover is you also want to avoid going through probate. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because I don't know that people are even
Sure.
familiar with any of this. When my father-in-law passed away, granted he didn't have a whole lot to his name, but that was still something we had
Right.
to handle. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, the one thing you want to know about probate is avoid it. Avoid it, right? And there's two ways to avoid it. One is you have less than, I think it's $145,000 in total estate, in which case it doesn't go through probate.
Okay.
Or two, you create a living will, or you create a document that says you can avoid probate, or a trust, a living trust.
Yes.
Right? Not just a will. If you do have a will, it still has to get probated. And all probate means is when you die, the courts will want to look at it, and they'll want to say, how is everything being distributed?
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburke.com/podcast guest for more information.
And so for that privilege, it will cost about 5 to 8% and take about a year or two.
Wow.
Right? And you won't be able to do anything. So the only thing you really want to know is, how do I avoid it? How do I avoid it? And by doing that, you want to set up a trust, right? And avoid probate at all costs. You don't have to look into everything else. Just avoid it. And there's easy ways that you can avoid it. for sure.
Well, you've shared so many different tips already. Um, let's talk about women because this podcast is
Yeah.
geared towards women entrepreneurs. Obviously, I have lots of guy listeners as well, but the focus here is on women that started their businesses. And as an entrepreneur, we are already thinking forward and thinking, what am I leaving behind? What am I building, right? As you're creating your own things. What are some of your tips for women? Is it any different? And we were talking before this, and you said you have two daughters as well. So you're very much attuned to women empowerment. So tell us more about your views when it comes to planning for their legacy as women entrepreneurs.
Sure. And my wife as well. She started her own business a few years back, and she does her own kind of consulting.
Nice.
So, I'm surrounded by these really amazing and inspirational women, in my life.
Yes.
And I think that from an estate planning, a legacy, I think that women actually have a leg up because from my sample, they're naturally more communicative, right? They're a little bit more collaborative and they're a
Yeah.
little bit more open. And that's really where to start and start building that team. I know with my wife's business partner, they have a conference call, the two of them every Monday, and they talk about everything for an hour. We share an office here. We both work from home, and
Nice.
I'm always in awe at the amount that they communicate and they talk. And I think, boy, that's really a skill that at least I don't have with my business partners or other people. It's more let's just text and get things done. So from that aspect, she has a leg up where I think that she might some of the listeners might benefit is to not focus so much on the finances where people can get scared, people can get intimidated by taxes and
Right.
trusts and all kinds of things like that. Just know there's lots of tools out there, right? Don't focus on how, focus on why. If you figure out on why you want to do something, then there's other people that will explain and walk you through the exact trusts, right? The exact things that you want to do, the exact mechanism and everything else. You don't need to know, how your car is working. You need to know why you want to use it, right? And
Right.
so, so don't be intimidated by that aspect of it. Just know what you want to do and why you want to do something, what legacy you want to leave behind, and then you could tackle those things.
Right. That's great advice. And
Yeah.
the whole part of about communication, whether it be women or anyone, is very important because just thinking about starting the conversation with somebody else, like your spouse or somebody else in your family, like what you're saying, it could be difficult because again, we're avoiding it, right?
Right.
So when you
Right.
start that conversation, it's a vulnerable moment, but it's facing that mortality, like you said, between two people, right? Or whoever it is that you're reaching out to. And I think that's a really starting point. I mean, us even talking about this and somebody listening to it and then contemplating, I need to talk to someone about this, is a great start for sure. I love that.
Sure. And add to the complexity if you're in a blended family, if you're
Mm,
later and you've got, maybe, two different marriages, three different
yes.
marriages, and or different cultures or even different political outlooks. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different things that are out there that can really complicate things, right? And you really, really want to make sure that you're having those conversations. I mean, I've got friends from different blended families as well, and different, and you've got to answer those questions and you've got to look at it and say what makes sense in your family.
Yes, which is one of the points that you make in your book, and why I'm assuming you decided to title Tangled Legacy,
Right.
not only because in general it's something that for you to consider when you go and look back at everything that you have going on, but
Sure.
especially if the family dynamics with blended families, there's even more to consider, more players in the game that you
For
have
sure.
to look into.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
And it could be, your normal family, but just
Yeah.
simply your economic or social or religious or those things. Those things tend to nowadays, families are more and more divided. You can
Yes.
look at them as blended for even, with the same mom and dad and three siblings, it
So
could
true.
still be very complex.
Right. Because everyone leads their own life and has different thought processes, and it's just adds more layers, more complexities, that's for sure, to something that's already complex. But we don't want to discourage anyone. What we want to do is encourage them to start. Well, that's why you need to start as soon as possible because you don't know what you're going to encounter. So
Sure.
What is like the main takeaway? I think in general terms is you need to do it. The main pitfall, like you said, is not doing it and not dealing with it. But what is like the main message behind the book? Because I really want to encourage people to go out and get it and read it for themselves.
Yeah, I love the question, and it's really, as I think about it, the reason why I got the book is or I wrote the book and went through it is just to get people to think about their legacy, right? To think when they're gone, is your last expression of love to somebody else is to leave them with love and leave them with, good memories. Don't leave them with issues and problems, right? Because it's not going to look good. It's not going to be good for them, right? And so, one last gift. And yes, it does take a little bit of time and effort. You have to know these things, and it's something you'll do your whole life. But you spend an entire lifetime building your love, giving your gifts, doing everything else, and then you don't want to just cash out and leave everybody with tangles. You
Yeah.
want to leave them with memories. And so do that, start that. It's not rocket science. You can do it. You just have to answer the questions that people sometimes are uncomfortable to ask.
Yeah. That is so powerful.
Yeah,
It's really a work of love to go through this.
that's
I think
right.
you
That's
seal
right.
the deal right now is as complicated as it is,
Yep.
do it for them,
Do it for
right?
them.
And especially for those of us that are parents, what wouldn't we do for our kids? So
Right.
add that to the list is making it
Absolutely.
easier for them.
And,
Um,
and there's not a monetary threshold, whether it's $1,000, $1 million,
right.
or whatever else. It doesn't have anything really to do with money. It's think about your values and think about what you want to pass on. Even if it's an estate worth, $10,000, I've seen more arguments over lower dollar estates than higher dollar because it's more emotional, right? So
Mhm.
don't consider at whatever aspect you're at,
Okay.
there's enough that you need to be looking at it.
Okay. That's a great point. Wow. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things through the years. Um,
Fortunately.
so besides really spreading this awareness and because of your own situation and your own experience and saying more people need to know about this, what is your other goal with having this book? Can people connect with you, to work with you? Tell us more.
Yeah. I'm kind of on this journey. I mean, I still do my practice. My kids, as of a week ago, I'm an empty nester, so I'm kind of on to the next chapter of my life and trying to figure out, hey, what do I want to do? And I really enjoyed writing the book, and I'm teaching a 10-week class now through the
Nice.
apartment association, and moving more into kind of the teaching and coaching aspect
That's
of
great.
things. So I enjoy that. I enjoy working with people, and so I have a few kind of people that I enjoy being that quarterback through.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of exploring that aspect of things, and how do I reach out, do things like this, talk to people? How do I reach more people to kind of help them with that inspiration to say,
Yeah.
hey, what can I do? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a tax attorney. But I know enough to ask them the right questions and ask you the right questions to ask these people.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, I will have you share with us how people can connect with you and find the
Sure.
book. But before, I have to ask you my $1 million question,
Cool.
which I ask all of my guests. Well, typically I ask, what is an empowered woman then? But feel free to answer what is an empowered human as well,
Yeah.
whatever comes to mind.
Oh gosh, you know what? An empowered woman, and of course, I'm thinking of my wife here, is a woman that doesn't have to ask for anything, a woman that just can do, right? And she knows that whatever she does, her family, her support group, her kids, her parents, her husband, her spouse, her partner, whoever will say, "Okay, I support that. I support that decision," because they know she's going to make that right call, and they're
Mhm.
going to look for it. So I that's what I think. Whatever it is an empowered woman is going to do whatever an empowered woman's going to do.
That's right. I love that answer. And you're gonna have to play this interview for your wife afterwards.
Yeah, right.
She's gonna love it. Thank you so much, Tim, for sharing with us. This was so cool. Can you tell us how people can connect with you? So if they want to start that conversation,
Sure.
maybe have you be their quarterback or that person
Yep.
to have those ask those questions or whatever. How can people find you?
Yeah, just send me my website, dgrealtyadvisors.com. You can go there and just submit a form and call me. My cell phones, you can always call my phone. I talk to people all day long about just different things. It's the way I stay kind of up on what's happening and just kind of listen to what people are doing. So I'm always willing to just lend that ear and just kind of, be there as an empty, open resource there. So feel free, go on. Send me an email, hit me up on my cell phone, and I'll see what I can do to just listen and give you some advice or
Awesome.
at least listen.
We'll make sure and put the link in the show notes. You're also on LinkedIn. We connected on there so people can find you there. In the book, tell us again the title of the book and where can people find it?
Yes, Tangled Legacy, with the successes, turning estate planning failures into successes, and it's on Amazon, and so you can buy it in hardback, paperback, and digital.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, thank you again for sharing with us. This was so great, and I'm excited for people to tune in and start planning their legacy.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Marta. I really appreciate that, and I wish you the best.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.